everyone. Very pleased to have you at the Asian chapter of PublisHer Unmasked, a series of candid conversations with inspiring book women from around the globe. Established in 2018 by Budwar Al-Kazmi, PublisHer is a worldwide community of female publishing leaders who are working to address publishing industry's gender imbalances, especially at the executive level, where they are most noticed. PublisHer Unmasked is traveling from region to region and comes to Asia after several fascinating conversations with female African publishers. You can catch the videos at PublisHer's YouTube channel. My name is Shweta Khurana. I'm the editor of All About Book Publishing, a trade journal about book business in India. And today I'm very happy and pleased to be talking to a lady who's fascinating and inspiring, Arpita Das, who runs an award-winning independent publishing house called Yoda Press. Yoda Press was started in 2004 with a vision for knowledge production. Arpita has taught on creative writing skills at Ashoka University and also at adjunct faculty at Ambedkar University. Her passion is writing, and she writes on various topics. A lady with many talents and roles. A very warm welcome to you, Arpita. So happy to have you here. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thanks so much, Shweta. It's good to be here. Good to be talking to you. Good to be talking to friends in this way.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because
Lovely.
right now that's the only option really that we have, isn't it? To be able to connect. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
firstly, I just want to congratulate you for Yoda Press journey of 16 years. In your experience, what do you think? What differentiates Yoda Press? What kind of different genre of books you publish? As an independent woman publisher, what are the challenges you face and what is your journey been like? And big congratulations for completing 16 years.
Thanks, Shweta. Yeah, 16 years, sometimes it seems like it's gone by like this, and sometimes, in some days, it feels like, oh my God, it's endless. So, that's how it is being for most small independent publishers, I think. I think the way I'd like to see Yoda Press has always been as part of a legacy in India of very, very important, powerful, independent publishing houses led, interestingly, by other women. Kali for Women that came into being in the 80s is one of them. And I always see myself as part of that legacy. I mean, had they not been there, I would not have been able to do what I do. And the only thing that I always keep in mind, that I kept in mind always from the beginning when we started Yoda Press, was that I felt that there is a constant discussion around mainstream India and mainstream South Asia, which a lot of big publishing houses are very quick to pick up on and publish on. And for me, it was important to go and mine, to really look for and mine voices and issues which were not part of that mainstream discussion, but part of an alternative sort of South Asian experience. And I think I'm not the only one to be doing this. There are other people looking at other aspects of the same experience. But there are particular ones that Yoda Press is focused on.
Yeah. Exactly. So could you tell us about your number of backlist titles and what number of titles do you target each year?
Well, I mean, now I think there are more than 125 titles.
Wow.
I know that's not a massive output for me to have been in business for 16 years and only having done 125 titles. I think there are others which have done 300 or more. But, it's always been a small team. It's always been about 3 to 5 of us, and we do everything in-house. Every book is a labor of love. Now, what we're doing is that we have been over the last 5 years bringing out about 15 titles a year. But, this year, of course, everything is up in the air and we don't know what's going to happen. But we started with, I think the first year we had brought out 3 titles, and now we're at 15 titles. And frankly, I would like to stay with this. I have no interest in making it, scaling it up to something more massive than this, because this is where I feel I can give uh, attention to all my books.
Arpita, you have some fantastic books, and what books do you consider to be your milestones? In fact, in 2018, when Supreme Court had passed the judgment against decriminalizing homosexuality in India, your 5 titles were cited. And in fact, one of your titles was published way back in 2005. So do tell us about this.
So, Shweta, obviously that particular list, which is the LGBTQ studies list and the LGBTQ writings list, has been a list that we've always considered a bit of a flagship list. In a sense, it always set us apart, and people always identified us as the independent publisher that, or maybe I could say the only publisher in South Asia that actually had a series and a list of titles on LGBTQ writings, which came out every year. So that entire list is like a milestone for us, absolutely. And 2018, of course, was a big, big year when our titles were cited in this historic judgment. But before that, in 2014, again, when the Supreme Court of India recognized the transgender community as a third gender, there again, 3 of our titles were cited as well. And I mean, it's been like a very, very sort of rewarding kind of an experience, in the sense that we don't make a hell of a lot of money. It's a fact. We're not, sort of a lucrative commercial enterprise. But when these things happen, it feels like you're part of changing something very, very pivotal and vital and intrinsic about our society. And that is incredibly rewarding. The book that we brought out in 2005 is called Because I Have a Voice, and that was the first book on our LGBTQ list. And it continues to remain in print. Now it's available as an ebook as well, and it continues to sell every year because it's become a bit of a, you can say, like they say, cult, like a cult kind of a seller for the LGBTQ community, because it was, I think, the first book which didn't want to put anonymous names in the author list. Neither did it want to address LGBTQ issues in the realm of fiction, but actually in, as narrative nonfiction, talk about the challenges the community faces and what they're trying to do to change uh, the perception that society has had of them and their own freedoms and the laws pertaining to them. So you can imagine that is back in 2005, which was the beginning of the movement.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That was the beginning of the movement in India. Yeah.
And fantastic. I mean, at that point of time, that 2005, you published it. Moving on to my next question is, like you mentioned, being pivotal, you've always had a perspective of, having collaborations. And your collaboration with Sage started in 2015. And currently also now in March 2020, you've collaborated with Simon & Schuster. So do tell us about the collaboration with Simon & Schuster and the 2 titles and your collaboration with Sage India.
Yeah. So, Shweta, I mean, I think I've, been sort of running this enterprise now for 16 years, and we do, we make mistakes, we learn from our mistakes, we learn from our experiences. And one of the things I learned in the first decade of doing Yoda Press was that if I wanted to continue to publish these books in a way that my authors also received what was due to them and the books really got the visibility they deserved, then I, being small, could not do it on my own much longer. And I wanted, therefore, to be able to collaborate with a firm larger than myself, and yet keeping the autonomy that I had always enjoyed. And I must say that, when Sage India and I, we first talked about this, they were absolutely respectful and very, very on the ball about this. Mr. Vivek Mehra, who's the CEO of Sage India, got what my concerns were immediately. I think the model we sort of worked out was something which was very, very fair to both of us. And so it's a joint imprint that Sage India and I have, and all our academic and more sort of serious non-fiction books now go on this joint imprint. And it's been a terrific partnership. With the Simon and Schuster one, has just begun. Again, it's a fabulous team of people. They're very, very they love books. That team really loves books, and it's a pleasure again to work with them. And there again, I mean, at Yoda Press, I've always believed that I am very clear about good writing and political publishing, but I've always been experimental about doing it across genres. So there are genres like fiction, like graphic novels, and more popular narrative nonfiction, which also needed to get the kind of visibility that my Sage Yoda books were getting now. And so Simon and Schuster India, when I talked to them about a possible joint imprint with them, again they were very excited, and we have sort of started this off this year. The first two books are very exciting. The first one is it's a translation of a very, very important Hindi writer called Shivani, who has not been translated much to English. This is one of her most best-selling novels called Bhairavi. And the second book, which is of course causing us particular excitement, is of the first graphic biography of Bhagat Singh, the Indian revolutionary leader Bhagat Singh, which has been put together by a wonderful young graphic artist called Ikru. And I think that both these books will sort of kind of very clearly identify the sort of joint imprint list that we want to create together. Yeah.
That's great. That's fantastic. It's actually fantastic. Coming to the current crisis, I mean, it's totally terrible what we're all facing. India is so uncertain. Every day we reach a new figure of, breaking barriers in terms of the virus. So how are you facing these challenging times as a publisher? And what are your challenges and concerns while in your work?
Shweta, it's been hard. It's been very hard. I think one of the things I decided in the first month by April itself was that I decided I was going to give up our office space. So we have given up our office space and we're all working from home. And while initially it was a lovely little office space, so I was very heartbroken. But I felt that I wanted to keep my team together. I wanted to prioritize what my team is due, their salaries. And so I had to sort of make a decision. And I think I made absolutely the right decision, because as the months are rolling by, there is so much talk now about the changes that are occurring in work culture, and how agile working and work from anywhere and work from home are going to be the new normal. I think, I've sort of reconciled to the fact that we had to give up this office space, and that we, if a small, independent, radical, fairly agile publishing house like ourselves don't, if we don't sort of adapt to this kind of situation fast, then I can't believe bigger ones can, So I think this is an opportunity in that sense for us to learn from, which I'm trying to do. The other thing that we tried to do is we realized we had to get inventive, because yes, sales were down, print sales were down to absolutely zero. Distributors were finding it difficult to make payments. So we had started doing, last year, we started a series of workshops for authors and editors at the Yoda Press office. And what we did in March very quickly was that we took these workshops online. And to tell you the truth, the response has been absolutely overwhelming. And we're not charging the earth, we're charging less than we did in the offline version. But it's still, we're getting such a lot of response that we are we're staying afloat because of it. So I think, we've just managed to kind of reinvent ourselves to some
Indeed.
degree, and we've managed to kind of firefight, and for now we're okay. Yeah.
Perfect. That's so. My next question is in continuation to your answer of the workshop. What we see is you're into so many things related to publishing. It's like the whole ecosystem of publishing. So you're mentoring young women publishers on WhatsApp group. You are running these workshops. You're teaching. You're also associated with the Mumbai Film Festival. So do tell us about your passion into the different activities also.
Shweta, you say that, oh, you're part of every aspect of publishing. My kids sometimes make fun of me at home saying, Mom, all you know is books and publishing. You don't know anything else. So, it's like two different universes sometimes. Yeah, I mean, actually, my Mumbai Film Festival consultancy has now come to an end. But yeah, for 4 years, I was consulting with them. And it is a fact that I am, there's no reasonable way to say it. I'm unreasonably passionate about book culture. I feel like uh, I am consumed by it, and it is my world, it is my life. And I do feel that what interests me lies both at the business end as well as the end of how knowledge is being received. So the life of the author interests me a lot as well. How
Okay.
aspiring authors, sort of make that shift from being aspiring authors to published authors, that interests
Okay.
me. That process interests me a lot as well. And it's for me, I think for me, it feels paramount that different industries, different knowledge industries and creative industries, particularly which are connected, should keep talking to each other. There should be convergence, there should be communication. And I find it very exciting when I'm part of those communication channels. Yeah.
Great. So, like you spoke about your author, so what makes you choose your manuscript, and what inspires you to choose it, and what is your own passion for writing?
Um, what inspires me to choose it? I can't put it down. I start reading it and I can't go to sleep. I have to
Okay.
finish reading it. So it has to have that readability. It has to have that. Um, in my case, aesthetics are as important as the political power of writing. Always. I don't publish anything that is not political. And I also believe very much in the adage, the personal is political, because a lot of the times um, we tend to forget that, or we tend to dismiss that. And in our times, these times, that is even more important than ever before. So I look for some of these things. I look for an author who foregrounds herself, who is not scared to bring the political into the personal, or vice versa, and of course who writes in a really consummate manner. So a lot of these things have to come together to make the manuscript that I really want to uh, give my time to. Yeah.
And your
And you
personal
asked
passion
about,
in writing?
yeah, my own passion for writing. Yes, I write a bit as well.
Yes.
I write a lot on book culture and publishing, but I also write a lot on popular culture and gender. For me, and if all of them somehow meet together, if I can have, if there's an essay I think of which could somehow address books and reading and gender and popular culture all together, and that has happened sometimes. I'm very excited to write it, because I think these are the things that really make me feel excited. These are the things that really fill my world. And I always write in the non-fiction genre. I
Okay.
sometimes do write in the memoir genre, and I feel like it's sometimes draining to write, particularly recently, where I'm writing a column on books that help you deal with grief. Um, I think
Frozen.
we've lost. Shweta, are you there?
I don't know what's happening.
Bear with me. I'll just pause the recording.
Yeah.
Take it away. Go for it.
So I can go back to the bit that I was talking about. Should I do that? Or do you want to?
You can talk about, let us go back the last line, where were we from?
Shweta, I cannot hear you very clearly for some reason now.
Can you hear me now?
Slightly low still. I'm trying to increase. No, my volume is high. I can't remember what I was saying last. Ben, I've completely forgotten.
You were just starting to talk about your column.
Oh, my column. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Of course I was. That's why we were talking about it. Yeah. Should I go back to that? And should I talk about that from there on?
Why don't you do that question? Yeah, exactly. From there on, and then I'm getting a countdown here. We've got 8 minutes left. So after that question,
Okay, so I'll finish this question, answering this question, and then we can do another call.
Right. Let's do that. Okay, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So so recently, I was asked to do this column on books that help you handle grief better, and when I write these columns, I feel absolutely exhausted at the end of it. But there are other columns that other pieces of writing that you do, which are exciting, which are cathartic, writing about grief is cathartic as well. So yeah, these are some of the interests in terms of what I like to write about. At some point, maybe there's a book-length work waiting there to happen, but somehow I find it very difficult to imagine myself as an author. I don't know what that'll look like. I don't know what that'll be like, but God knows. Yeah.
I'm sure that we will come soon. So, Arpita, what titles you think are most, you really love and you think are very prestigious that you'd like to highlight?
And you're talking about Yoda Press titles, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Because I have to always clarify that, because people sometimes ask, books that you love, and then, well, yeah, well, I think, yes, I can think of a few that I'd highlight straight away. You got to stop me if I'm getting carried away and naming too many. But one, of course, is the one we talked about earlier, Because I Have a Voice, which came out in 2005. I think that was in a sense, a real sort of a trend setter in terms of the kind of discussions that was going to follow and going to lead to the decriminalization of homosexuality 13 years later. I think a lot of the discussions were set there in that book, and which is why it remains such an important book even today. A couple of years after that, we did another very, very important book again on the same list, which is called Loving Women, and the subtitle is Being Lesbian in Unprivileged India. It's by this fantastic activist called Maya Sharma, who runs an NGO called Vikalp in Gujarat. And it is a series of narratives of women who chose to leave their families or not, but live with women in relationships across unprivileged India. So, what was really important, one of the very important things about that book was that even at that time in 2007, a lot of this, one used to hear a lot of this rubbish about, the gay movement is something that has just come in from the West, and this is not how things are in India, apparently. And this book sort of completely shattered that myth, because it was as homegrown as it can ever be. Yeah. And it's a really, really lovely book. Apart from that, there are so many books, and I feel awful naming some and not others, but there's another really lovely book that we've done more recently, which is actually the translation of a French book. It's a book by a very, very well-known French literature, writer, and also publishing professional called Charles Danzig. And the original book was called Pourquoi lire, and the English title is Why Read. And it's an ode to readers. It's an ode to reading and bibliophilia, and it's a really clever and lovely little book, which I'm very fond of. And we were able to buy rights and translate it to English for the first time. And Charles is a lovely author to deal with. And one last. Am I allowed one last? Yeah. Okay. So one last book that I would mention is a book that we have just published. It's by a very well-known anthropologist called Amita Baviskar. This is on the Sage Yoda Press list, and it's called Uncivil City. And no guesses, no prizes for guessing that it's about Delhi, of course, Uncivil City. But what's really interesting is that it looks at how a lot of the things that we see as ecological issues in Delhi are linked up with political and sociological sort of aspects. And if we don't understand how those dots are connected, we're not going to find a way out of this conundrum. So it's a very, very beautifully written book by a really brilliant scholar. And I love that book. I'm very glad we published it recently. Yeah.
They all sound very exciting.
Thank you.
So my next question is, in your journey as a publishing professional from when you first started to now, so what are the changes you've noticed for women in publishing in India? So how have things become better?
There are more women, first of all, for sure, in the industry. There are also many, many more women in more senior positions. I think all the publishing heads are all women. But for me, I have to always add a caveat because, I think the decision makers are still the men, mostly. And I don't mean the decision makers in terms of content. Those are women, of course, because as I said, the publishing heads are women, the editorial heads are women. But a lot of the decision making that is being done at a policy level, the finance heads, the CEOs, they are still mostly men. And, I think that I hope there comes a time when even in the big publishing houses, the leaders, the CEOs and the CFOs are also men. Independent publishing in India has been led by women for a very long time. There have been brilliant women at the heads of a lot of independent publishing houses. And in a lot of ways, they have changed the discussion around the gendering of the work of the workspace in publishing, obviously. I also want to add that we have now an incredible community of millennial women in this industry, and I think these women are articulate, they're feisty, they're bold and brilliant, and I think as an industry we need to listen to them much more than we are doing, and give their voice much more prominence and space. And I think going forward, looking at these women, this community of millennial women in the industry, going forward, I feel very hopeful about where this industry is headed, because I think they're full of fantastic ideas. And they're also not conditioned like many of us were in our generation or before our generation. They're not conditioned to taking shit, and they're not going to, Yeah.
That's why your WhatsApp group mentioned something to place, and I think you have more than 100 young women there, and I think it's a wonderful platform where you mentor. So that's very great. Congratulations on that. My last question is, how do you think PublisHer as a network is so important? It connects women across the world. So what do you feel about this network?
When I heard about PublisHer, and last year when I was asked to speak on the PublisHer panel at Frankfurt, and that evening. I was very, very thrilled to be part of the PublisHer dinner at Frankfurt. I felt so excited because a lot of the times what happens is there are a lot of us women in this industry. We know each other, we work with each other. But when you're part of one ecosystem, sometimes you stop being in touch, you stop discussing your issues because you feel, oh, it's the same thing, and they're going to say it's the same old stuff that she wants to talk about. And what happens with something like PublisHer is that a lot of women in the publishing industry across the world, particularly in other developing countries like in African countries or in Latin American countries or in Middle Eastern countries or Southeast Asian countries, have similar issues like I'm facing, right? Similar challenges, similar opportunities. And on a platform like this, what happens is you speak about your ecosystem with that sense of excitement, because there will be a novelty in that for the person you're speaking to, and yet they will be able to identify with it at some level because they're facing similar issues in their ecosystem. And there's so much to learn from there. There's so many solutions and ways out of problems that can be suggested when these sort of discussions happen across borders. And one of the very, very simple things which will happen very quickly, I know, when PublisHer women start getting even more friendly, is that when we travel, we're going to stay with each other during book fairs. For instance, when I go to Germany, I stay with my bookwoman friend in Frankfurt always. And I think that kind of a safe space support when we are traveling on business, that itself is such a huge thing that PublisHer has made possible by creating these connections between women. It's
a great
fabulous.
bond which is, it's a great bond which is, and
absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
it's like the conversation with you has been truly fantastic as always. It's so inspiring with so many facets to you and the work you do. So thank you so much, Arpita.
Thanks, Shweta.
Thank you so
it's
much.
Always lovely to talk to you.
Sorry?
Thank you. It's always lovely to talk to you. Thank you for those questions.
I look forward to meeting you soon.
Yeah, that too. Yes, absolutely. Very soon, hopefully. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, PublisHer.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you, viewers. Thank you so much.
Thank you.